Hey, this is Chris, and in this video I'm going to be answering a common question, which is, are ETFs over-diversified, or can you even be over-diversified? So to start off with, I think it's worth talking about why you diversify in the first place. Now, there's really two reasons why you diversify. The first one is to avoid what's known as single stock risk. Single stock risk is what happens when you only own a small number of shares and one particular company can have a big impact on your portfolio. Now, because individual shares are quite unpredictable, what you want when you're investing is not to have any single stock risk, because that adds unnecessary ups and downs in your portfolio. The second reason why you diversify is to ensure that you always own the winners in your portfolio. Now, research has shown that somewhere between 4 to 6% of companies, so not very many, actually generate all of the market returns. So the other risk of not diversifying well enough is that you miss out on these companies. If you only own a portfolio of 10 or 20 companies, there's actually a really high probability that you're going to miss out on these companies that are driving all of the market returns. So clearly there is a benefit to diversifying, and there is a disadvantage to not diversifying enough. But the next question is, can you be over-diversified? And I think the answer is yes. And the reason is that some people, from what I've seen, can have many ETFs or many funds in their portfolio that are overlapping. So let's say you own 5 or 6 different Australian share funds or ETFs, or 5 or 6 different global ETFs. The risk is that you think that you're well diversified, but actually the underlying shares in those ETFs are the same. This is the problem of having an overlapping portfolio that gives you the false idea of being diversified, when in reality you're not diversified at all. And while the risks of this are, I think, lower than not being diversified well enough, I think there is the chance that you then take on too much risk because you think you're diversified, and then when markets fall, you realize that you had the same exposure over and over and over again. So you can be over diversified, and it leads to risks of perception and risks of costs. So I also want to address a common myth spread by active fund managers that diversifying is somehow unsophisticated or only for idiots. Now, the question I always have for those active fund managers is, show me that you have continuously held the winning shares in the market. Have you continuously held the Amazons and Apples of the world in your portfolio for the last 20 years? Because as a diversified index investor, you have owned those shares all the time. The reality is most active fund managers don't have the discipline to continuously hold the best performing shares in the market, and that is why 80% of active fund managers underperform the market. It's because they're not well enough diversified. To me, not diversifying your portfolio is basically the same as driving without a seatbelt. Now, regardless of how skillful you think you are as a driver, it's a pretty reckless thing to do, because roads, like the markets, are unpredictable. And sometimes accidents happen that are completely out of your control because of others. And that's why diversifying is so important, because it will protect you from accidents in the market when they happen.